There are moments in life that divide everything into before and after. Moments so vivid that even years later you can still feel the air, smell the scent around you, and hear the tremor in someone's voice. That night in late September was mine. I wasn't ready for what Marcus would tell me or how it would shatter everything I thought I knew about us, only to rebuild it into something more real, more terrifying, and more beautiful than I could have ever imagined. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand that night, you have to know how it all began. The coffee shop on 5th and Morrison had become my sanctuary that summer. I just moved to Portland, escaping the heavy expectations of my small Ohio hometown and the ghost of a relationship that had left me questioning everything about myself. At 26, I was supposed to have it all figured out: career, love, identity. Instead, I felt like I was living someone else's life. I always sat at the corner table by the window, laptop open, pretending to work on my design portfolio, but mostly just watching people and getting lost in thought. The routine brought comfort: oat milk latte, jazz from the old speakers, the steady hum of the espresso machine. That's where I first saw him. Marcus walked in one Thursday afternoon in July, and the room shifted. He had that quiet kind of presence that draws you in without asking to. Tall, with deep brown skin that seemed to glow in the sunlight, close-cropped hair, and striking hazel eyes that looked like they held entire conversations. He wore a navy button-down, sleeves rolled up, forearms that made my focus waver embarrassingly long. He ordered something complicated, but I wasn't listening to the words, just watching the way his lips moved, the easy smile he gave the barista, the confidence that never felt like arrogance. When he turned to find a seat, our eyes met. It lasted maybe 3 seconds, but I felt it everywhere. That electric pull, that strange recognition, like my soul whispered, "Oh, there you are." He smiled, just a small curve of his lips, and I instantly looked down, my face burning, my heart pounded in my chest. 26 years old and blushing like a teenager, ridiculous. I didn't look up again until I heard a chair slide beside me. He'd sat at the next table, close enough for me to catch his scent, warm, woody, with a hint of citrus. I tried to focus on my screen, but the designs suddenly looked meaningless. "The cortado here's incredible," he said, voice rich and smooth. "But you're more of a latte person, I'm guessing." I looked up, startled. He was watching me, a playful spark in his eyes. "Is it that obvious?" I asked, trying to sound calm. He grinned. "You've got that creative comfort over trend vibe. That's a compliment, by the way. I'm Marcus." "Elliot," I said, shaking his hand. His grip was warm and steady and lingered just long enough to leave a mark. That handshake was the start of everything. Marcus became a regular, and somehow we always ended up there at the same time. We'd trade smiles, comments about the weather, the music, every interaction light, easy, but underneath, something unspoken kept growing. 3 weeks into this quiet dance, he finally said, "Would you want to grab dinner sometime? I mean, if coffee shop small talk is getting old." My heart flipped. "Dinner sounds great," I said. We went to a small Italian place in the Pearl District that Saturday, candlelight, brick walls covered with old photos, generous plates meant to share. Marcus wore a charcoal sweater that fit him unfairly well. I changed outfits 4 times before settling on dark jeans and a burgundy shirt. Over pasta and red wine, I learned he was 31, from Atlanta, working as a software engineer for a startup downtown. He loved Portland, its rain, its weirdness, the mountains visible on clear days. "What brought you here?" he asked, twirling pasta around his fork. I hesitated, the question I always dreaded. "I needed a fresh start," I said. "My last relationship ended badly, and in Ohio, being gay meant being the town's token outsider. I wanted to live somewhere I could just be." He nodded slowly, something flickering in his eyes, understanding. "I get that," he said. "The South isn't easy either. My family's complicated when it comes to who I am." "Religious?" I asked softly. "Baptist, traditional," he said, taking a sip of wine. "They love me, just not the version of me that's real." The ache in his voice felt painfully familiar. Without thinking, I reached across the table, resting my hand over his. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. He turned his palm up, lacing our fingers together. The warmth of his skin spread through me. "It gets easier," he murmured, "or maybe you just get stronger." We talked until the restaurant closed, until the staff started stacking chairs. Marcus insisted on paying, despite my protests. Outside, the Portland mist had begun to fall. "I really enjoyed tonight," he said under the awning. "Me too," I breathed, suddenly aware of how close we stood, the drops glistening in his hair. He took a half step closer. "Can I kiss you, Elliot?" The fact that he asked, that he wanted consent, connection, made me want it even more. "Please," I whispered. His lips were soft, the kiss gentle and curious. His hand came up to cup my jaw, thumb brushing my cheekbone, and I melted into him. The world shrank to the warmth of his body, the taste of wine, the rhythm of our breaths. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "I've wanted to do that since the coffee shop," he whispered. "What took you so long?" I teased and felt him smile. The next 2 months were a blur of discovery and quiet joy. Dinners, walks through Forest Park, rainy Sundays spent in bed reading. Marcus showed me his favorite Ethiopian restaurant. I took him to the bookstore I loved. We built something slowly, carefully, brick by brick. Our connection deepened naturally. The second date ended in long, breathless kisses at my apartment door. The third, he stayed the night. In the dark, with his skin against mine, his breath warm against my ear, I felt something I hadn't in years. I felt seen. There were small moments, ones I didn't pay enough attention to, when Marcus seemed distant. His phone would buzz and I'd see him tense, checking the screen with an unreadable expression before forcing a smile. Whenever our conversations drifted toward certain topics, his family, past relationships, or future plans, he'd steer them away with practiced ease. I told myself it was normal. We were still new, still learning each other. Everyone has parts of themselves they keep hidden, pieces of their past they reveal only when it feels safe. I had my own too. My ex, Jeremy, had left scars I was still healing from, the kind that whisper you're too much and not enough at the same time. He'd cheated and somehow made it my fault. So when Marcus kept certain doors closed, I respected that. I thought we had time. I thought one day he'd trust me enough to let me in completely. I didn't realize the truth he was hiding would test everything we were building. It was mid-September when things changed. Marcus had been quieter that week, distracted. When I asked what was wrong, he kissed my forehead and said work was stressful. But I could feel something underneath, like the air before a storm. Then came Friday night. He texted, "Can I come over? I need to talk." 4 words that always make my heart race, because in my experience nothing good ever follows them. I cleaned my apartment like it was a distraction, changed clothes twice, and by the time he knocked, my hands were shaking. When I opened the door, Marcus looked exhausted, still beautiful but carrying a weight that seemed to bend his shoulders. "Hey," I said softly, stepping aside. "Hey," he echoed, his voice barely above a whisper. He didn't kiss me, didn't touch me, just walked to the couch and sat heavily. I joined him, close enough to reach out but giving him space. "Marcus, what's going on? You're scaring me." He stared at his hands, jaw tight, as if searching for the right words. When he finally looked up, his eyes were glossy with unshed tears. "There's something I need to tell you," he said. "And I'm terrified that when I do, you'll leave, but you deserve the truth. I can't keep hiding this anymore." My heart pounded, 1,000 possibilities flashed through my mind. "Whatever it is," I said gently, taking his hand, "just tell me." He squeezed my fingers, like holding onto an anchor. "I'm HIV positive." The world tilted. Those 3 words hung between us, echoing like a bell that wouldn't stop ringing. Every assumption I'd made, every future I'd imagined, suddenly uncertain. I wasn't ready, not for what he said, not for what it meant. But looking at him, vulnerable, trembling, trusting me with his deepest truth, I knew this was the moment that mattered. This was where I chose who I wanted to be. What kind of love I was capable of. Time slowed, I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator, the traffic outside, the rhythm of our breathing. Marcus sat there, braced for rejection, waiting for disgust, for me to pull away. The fact that he expected it, that he'd probably experienced it, made something inside me ache. Anger not at him, but at a world that taught him to expect abandonment for telling the truth. Say something, he whispered, voice cracking. Please, Elliot. I realized I'd been silent too long. I squeezed his hand tighter. How long have you known? 4 years, he said quietly. I got tested after a breakup. My ex had been cheating and never told me. By the time I found out, he was gone, and I was left to deal with everything alone. The pain in his voice was unbearable. Are you on treatment? Are you healthy? I asked. Relief flickered across his face. Yes, I've been on antiretroviral therapy since the diagnosis. My viral load been undetectable for 3 years now. That means I can't transmit it to anyone. U equals U, undetectable equals untransmittable. It's proven, but still, he let out a bitter laugh. People don't care about science, they just freak out. I let that sink in. Have you been afraid to tell me all this time? He nodded. Terrified. I know I should have told you before we got close. We used protection every time, but still, I kept putting it off, convincing myself I'd tell you next week. Once I was sure this was real, and now it is. You are. I couldn't keep lying. Tears slid down his cheeks. I reached up and wiped them away, cupping his face. You're not a coward, I said softly. You're one of the bravest people I know. Don't, he said, shaking his head. Don't comfort me when you should be. Should be what? I interrupted, running, judging you. I leaned closer. Marcus, look at me. I'm not going anywhere. I'm shocked. Yes, I need time to process, to learn, but this doesn't change how I feel about you. It should, he whispered. It changes everything for most people. I'm not most people. I pulled him into my arms, and he broke silent sobs, shaking his body. I held him tighter, one hand stroking his back, the other cradling his head. We'll figure this out, I whispered, together. We stayed like that for a long time, until his breathing calmed. Then he looked at me and said, I need you to understand something. I'm not broken, I'm not a victim. I'm living with HIV, and yeah, it comes with challenges, but I'm healthy, I'm careful, and I'm more than this diagnosis. I know, I said. I see you, Marcus, all of you. He searched my face, found something there, and kissed me, slow, deep, full of relief. The weeks that followed were a learning curve. I read everything I could about HIV, separating fear from fact. I learned how far medicine had come, how people with HIV live long, healthy lives. Marcus answered every question patiently, never judging what I didn't know. We talked about treatment, stigma, and how ignorance still hurts more than the virus itself. One night, as we cooked dinner together, Marcus said quietly, the hardest part isn't the medication or the checkups, it's the fear of losing people when they find out. I looked at him, love swelling in my chest, and said, you're not losing me. And I meant it. Because love isn't about perfection, it's about presence, honesty, and choosing someone even when the world tells you to walk away. That night I chose him. And it was the best decision I've ever made. I take my pills every day. I see my doctor every few months, and my blood work is always solid. The hardest part isn't the medicine, it's people's reactions. Have you lost people over this? I asked, though deep down I already knew the answer. Yeah, Marcus said, scraping vegetables into the pan with a little too much force. I've had friends pull away, dates who ghosted me after I was honest, people treating me like I'm contagious just from being near them. He paused, eyes darkening. One guy told me I must be lying, said everyone with HIV is dangerous. He shook his head, that one hurt. I set my spoon down and wrapped my arms around him from behind, resting my cheek against his back. Their ignorance isn't your burden to carry, I whispered. He turned to face me, hands cupping my cheeks. How are you so okay with this? Be honest, are you scared? I thought carefully before answering. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't any fear, but it's not fear of you or of HIV, it's fear of losing you, fear of not being enough, of saying the wrong thing. I'm afraid of the world being cruel to you and not being able to protect you from it. His eyes softened. You don't have to protect me, he said quietly, just stay, that's all I need. I'm not going anywhere, I promised, and sealed it with a kiss. But staying meant learning, and facing things neither of us had prepared for. We had to talk about intimacy, about protection, about the science behind U equals U. Those conversations felt awkward at first, almost clinical, but Marcus never made me feel judged or guilty for needing reassurance. Your comfort matters, he told me one night as we lay in bed, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. If you need time, if you want to talk to a doctor, anything, just tell me. This only works if we're both honest. I tilted my head up. Did your ex, the one who gave you HIV, know his status? Marcus's jaw tightened. I don't know, he never said, never got tested. After my diagnosis, I tried to reach out, but he blocked me everywhere. I was furious for a long time. Therapy helped me work through that. You go to therapy? He nodded. Yeah, since the diagnosis. It helped me deal with the stigma, the trauma, all of it. I stopped about a year ago when things felt stable, but maybe that was too soon. Would you go back? I asked gently. Maybe. Would you come with me? Maybe do a few sessions together. Of course, I said without hesitation. I want to understand this better. I want to make sure I'm supporting you the right way, and honestly, I have my own stuff to unpack. My last relationship left me with trust issues, and I don't want that to poison what we're building. Marcus smiled softly, kissing the top of my head. Couples therapy after 2 months together, he said with a laugh. That's either really healthy or really intense. Can it be both? I asked, grinning. Yeah, he murmured, it can be both. 2 weeks later, we had our first session with Dr. Reeves, a therapist who specialized in LGBTQ plus relationships and chronic illness. Her office was warm and full of plants, sunlight spilling across soft couches. So, she said kindly, notepad in hand, what brings you both here today? Marcus and I exchanged a glance. He squeezed my hand, nervous. I'm HIV positive, he said, getting right to it. I told Elliot about 6 weeks ago. He's been incredible, but we want to make sure we're handling things in a healthy way for both of us. Dr. Reeves nodded, smiling gently. That's very mature of you both. Elliot, how did you feel when Marcus first told you? I took a deep breath. Scared, I admitted, not of him but of saying the wrong thing, of not knowing enough, of how the world would treat him, treat us, but I was also determined. I wanted to understand, to be there for him. And now, she asked. Now, I feel more informed, more confident, but I still worry sometimes. Not about transmission, I understand the science now. I worry about him, about the weight he carries, about whether I'm enough. Marcus's hand tightened around mine. You're more than enough, he whispered. Dr. Reeves turned to him. Marcus, how has disclosing your status affected your anxiety in the relationship? He was quiet for a moment before saying softly, it's better now that he knows. The secret was eating me alive, but I still wake up some mornings afraid he'll change his mind, that this will be too much for him, that he deserves someone easier. Someone without HIV, she asked gently. Marcus nodded, yeah. We talked for nearly an hour about fear, trust, and communication, about checking in emotionally, about building safety and truth. By the end, I felt lighter, like the two of us were carrying the weight together now instead of alone. When we stepped out into the gray Portland afternoon, Marcus wrapped an arm around me and kissed my temple. Thank you, he whispered, for being here, for doing this with me. Always, I said, and I meant it with everything in me. October came, painting the city in gold and red. Marcus and I had settled into a rhythm, date nights, slow mornings, laughter filling the quiet. We were merging our lives in small, beautiful ways. I'd met his best friend, Jordan, who hugged me tight and whispered, thank you for seeing him. He'd met my close circle of friends, who welcomed him instantly. But there was still one part of Marcus's life I hadn't touched, his family. He rarely mentioned them, only in fragments. I knew his mom called sometimes, that he had 2 younger sisters, and that things with his dad were strained. But that was it, like a photograph slightly out of focus. One evening in mid-October, we were at his apartment, a sleek minimalist space in the Pearl District that somehow still felt warm. We were halfway through a movie when his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and froze. It's my mom, he said, voice tight. I should take this. Of course, I said, pausing the movie. He walked to the bedroom, answering with a soft, careful tone I'd never heard before. Hey mama, yes, I'm fine, how are you? I tried not to listen, focusing on the TV, but the apartment was too small to block out the tension in his voice. 15 minutes later, he came back looking troubled. Everything okay? I asked. He sat down beside me, rubbing his face. My youngest sister, Nia, is getting married in December. Mom wants me to come home for the wedding. That's good news, I said gently, so what's wrong? She wants me to bring a date, he said with a humorless laugh. She knows I'm gay, has for years, but we've always had this unspoken rule. I don't talk about dating and she gets to pretend that part of my life doesn't exist, keeps the peace. My stomach tightened. And if you brought me, it would force conversations we've all been avoiding for a decade. He looked at me, conflict flickering in his eyes. I want you there, Elliot. I want my family to know you, to see how happy you make me, but they don't even know I'm HIV positive. Coming out was hard enough, this would just be too much, I finished softly. He nodded, voice breaking a little. My mom would blame herself, my dad would call it punishment, proof that being gay is dangerous, and I just can't handle that, not when things finally feel okay. I reached for his hand, threading our fingers together. You don't have to tell them anything you're not ready to share, I said, and you don't have to bring me if it's going to hurt you. He nodded silently, eyes glistening. And in that moment I understood that love sometimes means staying close, even when it hurts to stay quiet. I understand, I said quietly. Do you? He turned to face me, eyes full of conflict. Because sometimes it feels like I'm hiding you, hiding us, and that's not fair to you. Marcus, I said firmly, your family, it's complicated, I get that. I'm not going to push you to come out, not before you're ready, whatever you decide, I'm with you. He pulled me close, his arms trembling slightly. I don't deserve you, he murmured into my hair. Yes, you do, I whispered. You deserve someone who sees you, who loves you, who stands by you, and that's exactly what I plan to do. The next few weeks felt heavy, like a storm waiting to break. The wedding was coming and Marcus couldn't escape the weight of it. He wanted to include me, to show the world who we were, but fear held him back. One night I said softly, what if you just went alone? I could stay here, you could go and be there for your sister without the stress. He shook his head, I don't want to go without you, but I also don't want to put you through their judgment. I can handle judgment, I said, smiling faintly. I grew up in small-town Ohio, remember, I've seen ignorance before. This is different, he said. These are people I love. Their opinions still matter, even when I wish they didn't. If my dad says something cruel or my mom looks at you with pity, I don't know if I could take that. I looked at him, really looked, and I understood. Then we'll decide together, I said. No guilt, no pressure, just honesty. In the end, Marcus chose to go alone. It broke something in me, but I respected his choice. The night before his flight, we lay tangled together in bed, neither of us sleeping. I wish things were different, he whispered in the dark. I wish I could introduce you as my boyfriend, take you home with pride. You will, I said softly. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not at this wedding, but someday, when you're ready or when you decide you don't need their approval to be happy. He turned toward me, eyes glistening. I love you, he said suddenly, the words trembling out of him. I love you, Elliot. I'm sorry I can't give you everything right now. My breath caught. We'd been dancing around those words for weeks. Hearing them now, raw, desperate, made my heart ache. I love you too, I whispered, and you're giving me everything that matters. That night we made love like it was both a promise and a prayer. As if holding each other could protect us from the world. When he left for Atlanta the next morning, the silence that followed him home was deafening. The apartment felt colder, emptier. He called every night, his voice distant, wrapped in the noise of family gatherings. But then one night the call came early. His voice was shaking. My mom found my medication, he said. I forgot to hide it, she knows. What happened? I asked, sitting up in bed. She asked what it was for. I couldn't lie. I told her and she cried, Elliot. She thought I was dying. My dad came in and when she told him. Marcus paused, his breath hitched. He said this is what happens when people choose that lifestyle, that I brought it on myself, that God was punishing me. I felt my chest tighten. Marcus, none of that is true. I know, he said quietly, but hearing it from him, seeing the fear in her eyes, it broke something in me. He left that night, stayed with a friend named Jordan, said he couldn't stay in that house. When he called again the next day, his voice was steadier. Nia came to see me, he said. She heard everything, she apologized, said she wants to meet you someday, she's happy for me. A smile found its way to my lips. I'd love that. Yeah, Marcus said softly. I'm done hiding, Elliot. I'm done letting fear decide how I live. When I come home, I want us to move forward, openly, honestly. I'm ready, I said, whatever it looks like. The wedding was beautiful and tense. His mother, eyes red from crying, held his hands and whispered, I don't understand everything, but you're my son. I love you. I'm not losing you over this. It wasn't perfect acceptance, but it was a beginning. When Marcus finally walked through the airport doors days later, I saw him, tired, worn, but lighter somehow. And in that moment I knew the storm had passed. Not completely, but enough for sunlight to find its way through. When our eyes met, he smiled, a real, genuine smile that reached all the way to his eyes. He dropped his bag and pulled me into his arms right there in the middle of the terminal, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. But I didn't care. I wrapped my arms around him and held on just as hard. I'm home, he whispered against my neck. God, I'm finally home. The drive back to my apartment was quiet, the kind of peaceful silence that only comes when words aren't needed. His hand rested in mine on the center console, fingers intertwined. Once inside, Marcus finally let go, emotionally and physically. We lay on the bed, still fully dressed, as he told me everything. The confrontation with his father. His mother's tears. His sister's unexpected support. And the complicated goodbye that followed. My mom asked me to send her some information about HIV, he said, voice muffled against my chest. Articles, resources, anything that might help her understand. She wants to learn. She's scared, but she wants to try. That's huge, I said, running my fingers through his hair. That's a really good sign. And Nia asked when she could video chat with both of us, he added, lifting his head. She wants to officially meet the boyfriend who makes her brother happy. Of course, I said with a smile, I'd love to meet her. Marcus studied me for a long moment. You really meant it, didn't you, when you said you weren't going anywhere? Every word, I said. Marcus, I love you not because of your diagnosis and not because I'm trying to be noble. I love you because you're you, strong, kind, funny, brave, and brilliant. That's what matters. This diagnosis is part of your story, but it's not your whole story, and I want to be part of it too if you'll have me. His eyes filled with tears, but not from sadness. These were tears of relief, joy, and gratitude. I want that more than anything, he whispered. I want a real life with you, one where we don't hide anymore, one where we face things together. Then that's exactly what we'll build, I said and kissed him. That night felt like a new beginning, like we were shedding old fears and stepping into something stronger. The weeks after Marcus's return were transformative. We found a new rhythm built on honesty, openness, and mutual support. We kept seeing Dr. Reeves working through the pain of his family's reaction and my own fear of commitment. I realized now I was holding back, I admitted one session. I was scared of getting hurt again like I did with Jeremy, but after almost losing Marcus, I know that holding back doesn't protect you from pain. It only keeps you from real joy. Marcus squeezed my hand. We've both been holding back, but not anymore. We started making plans, real plans. Marcus met my parents over a video call. They lived in Ohio and couldn't travel much. At first they were cautious, but his warmth won them over quickly. After the call, my mom pulled me aside and said, "He looks at you like you hung the moon. That's special." In January, we decided to move in together. Marcus's lease was ending, and it just felt right. We found a cozy 2-bedroom apartment in southeast Portland. Hardwood floors, big windows, a small balcony perfect for morning coffee. Merging our lives was chaotic and wonderful, arguing over which couch to keep, discovering we were both weirdly attached to certain kitchen gadgets, finding ways to make every space feel like us. Marcus set up his home office for remote work, and I claimed the second bedroom as my design studio. Then one evening in February, as we unpacked the last boxes, Marcus's phone rang. I saw him tense slightly before answering. "Hi, Mom," he said softly. I gave him privacy, retreating to the kitchen. Their calls had become more frequent since the wedding. His mother was trying, really trying. She had joined a parent support group for LGBTQ+ families, started reading about HIV and AIDS, and even spoke to Marcus's doctor. It wasn't perfect, she still stumbled sometimes, but she was showing up, and that mattered. When Marcus came back into the room 10 minutes later, he was smiling. "Mom wants to come visit," he said. "In March, she wants to see where I live, meet you properly," and his voice broke slightly. She apologized for her reaction, for not being there, for all the years I felt like I couldn't tell her. She said she wants to do better. I crossed the room and hugged him. "That's incredible." "I'm nervous," he admitted. "What if she says something wrong? What if she treats you differently?" "Then we'll handle it together," I said firmly. "She's trying, Marcus, she's reaching out, that takes courage too." He nodded. "You're right, and I want her to know you, to see how happy I am." When Patricia, Marcus's mom, arrived in late March, she looked so much like him it made me smile. Same kind eyes, same warm energy. She hugged Marcus tightly at the airport, long enough for his eyes to glisten. Then she turned to me. "Elliot," she said, opening her arms, "come here, baby. Any man my son loves is family." Her hug was real, steady, and full of warmth. When she pulled back, she patted my cheek. "Thank you for loving my boy." "It's easy to love him," I said honestly. She smiled. The weekend was full of small, healing moments, shared meals, laughter, long talks. Patricia admired our apartment, asked about my design work, and told stories about Marcus's childhood that made us both laugh. On Saturday evening, we made dinner together. Marcus cooked salmon, Patricia baked her famous peach cobbler. As we sat around the table, Patricia reached out, taking both our hands. "I need to say something," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Marcus, when you told me about your diagnosis, I handled it badly. I let fear take over instead of love. That's not what you deserved." "Mom," he began, but she shook her head. "Let me finish, baby. I've spent months learning, talking to other parents, educating myself. I can't change how I reacted, but I can be better now. And Elliot," she looked at me, "thank you for being there when I was, for loving him, for seeing him, for helping build this beautiful life." Tears burned behind my eyes. "Mrs. Patricia," I said softly, "Marcus is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Taking care of each other, that's just what we do." She squeezed our hands. "You two are going to be just fine, I can see it, and you'll always have a home with me." Marcus was crying openly now, and so was I. We hugged her, all three of us, a tangled mix of arms, tears, and laughter. It felt like a door finally opening, one that had been locked for years, letting light pour in. June brought Pride Month, and with it, a conversation Marcus and I had been waiting for. "I want to go to the parade this year," he said one morning over coffee. "Not just to watch, to march, to celebrate who I am, who we are." I smiled. "Then let's do it." We joined a local nonprofit group for HIV-positive individuals and their partners. The weeks before Pride were filled with planning, sign-making, and laughter. Marcus was nervous but excited, and watching him step into his truth was beautiful. When Pride Day arrived, the sun was bright, the air alive with music and color. We wore matching shirts. His said "undetectable equals untransmittable," and mine read love is science." We covered ourselves in glitter, grabbed our flags, and joined the crowd. The energy was electric, thousands of people celebrating love, identity, and survival. And as we marched hand in hand, I looked at Marcus, free, proud, radiant, and I knew. This was just the beginning of our story. The parade was a sea of color and emotion, a diverse crowd of people, each with their own stories, their own battles, their own kind of courage. There was laughter, tears, hugs, and an overwhelming sense of shared understanding. As we began to march, Marcus reached for my hand and lifted it high. The crowd erupted in cheers. Music boomed from every direction. I turned to look at him, the man I loved, once so afraid of being seen, now standing proudly in full view of the world, celebrating himself and our love without apology. "I love you," I shouted over the music. He grinned, pulled me close, and kissed me right there in the middle of the parade route. The people around us cheered, and we laughed, wild, free, and so alive. Later, when the parade ended, we found a quiet spot in the park. The noise faded into the distance as we sat side by side, exhausted but happy. Marcus looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "What?" I asked, smiling. "That night I told you my status," he began softly. "I wasn't ready for what came after. I wasn't ready for you to stay, for you to love me despite everything, for us to build something real. I spent so long believing my diagnosis made me unlovable that I'd have to settle for people who might tolerate me at best. But you proved me wrong, Elliot. You showed me I deserve love, real love. Love that doesn't hide, doesn't flinch, doesn't give up. My throat tightened. You always deserved that, I said. I'm just grateful I got to be the one to give it to you. He smiled, a soft, trembling smile, and kissed me again. Marry me, he whispered against my lips. I froze. What? Marry me, he repeated louder now, his voice steady and sure, no ring, no big gesture, just the pure truth in his eyes. I don't have this planned out and it's not the romantic proposal you deserve, but I don't want to wait. I want to spend my life with you officially, legally, in every way that matters. Elliot, will you marry me? The world around us went silent. Even the crowd nearby seemed to hold its breath. I didn't need to think. This man, with his strength and his softness, his courage and his heart, was my person. He always had been since the first time our eyes met in that coffee shop. Yes, I said, laughing through tears. Yes, absolutely yes. Marcus swept me up, spinning me around as people clapped and cheered. He set me down and kissed me deeply, and in that moment the joy was so pure it hurt. We married in September, exactly 1 year after that night Marcus told me the truth. The ceremony was small and intimate, held in a botanical garden surrounded by late summer blooms. Patricia sat in the front row, crying happy tears. Marcus's sister, Nia, stood proudly as one of his groomspeople. My parents were there too, along with friends from Portland and our HIV support group. Marcus's father didn't attend, but 2 weeks before he sent a card, short and awkward but heartfelt. It said, "Wishing you both happiness, working on understanding, love, Dad." It wasn't much, but Marcus cried when he read it and carefully placed it in a box with other important keepsakes. When it came time for vows, Marcus took my hands and spoke with a steady voice. Elliot, you came into my life when I'd convinced myself I was better off alone, that avoiding pain was safer than risking love. But you proved me wrong. You saw every part of me, the good, the scared, the complicated, and you chose love anyway. You taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness, that asking for help doesn't make me less, that I deserve happiness and partnership and a future filled with joy. I promise to keep choosing courage, to keep choosing honesty, and to keep choosing us today and every day after. I love you. By the time he finished, half the guests were crying. I took a shaky breath and began my vows. Marcus, that night you told me about your status, I said I wasn't ready, and I was. Not for the depth of love I'd feel for you, not for how much you'd change me. You've shown me what it means to be brave, to be real, to face the world with grace even when it's unkind. You've given me a home not just in a place but in your heart. I promise to honor that gift every day, to stand beside you, to lift you up, to celebrate you, and to love you with everything I have, always. When we kissed, the garden burst into applause. We walked back down the aisle as husbands, hand in hand, ready for our future. The reception was at the restaurant where we'd had our first date. We danced, ate too much, and laughed until our faces hurt. During the father-son dance Marcus couldn't have with his dad, Jordan, our friend, stepped in. Marcus cried harder than I'd ever seen him. Later, we slipped out to the patio, needing a quiet moment. The Portland skyline shimmered in the distance and soft fairy lights glowed above us. "Can you believe this is our life?" Marcus whispered, holding me close. "Sometimes it feels unreal," I admitted, "like I'll wake up and it'll all have been a dream." He smiled. "Not a dream, this is real, we're real, and we're just getting started." I looked at him, my husband, my home, and felt a peace so complete it took my breath away. "I wasn't ready for what you told me that night," I said, "but I'm so glad I stayed to find out what came next." He smiled. "And what comes next?" "Everything," I said, "everything comes next." And it did. We built a life filled with ordinary joys and extraordinary love. We traveled. We created, we grew together through career changes, health scares, and family ups and downs. We became advocates for the HIV community, sharing our story to help others find hope. We adopted a dog, hosted dinners for chosen family, and made our home a place of safety and laughter. Marcus's father slowly came around, awkwardly but sincerely. Patricia called me her second son. Nia had a baby, and watching Marcus hold his niece for the first time remains one of my favorite memories. Life wasn't perfect, but it was real. Marcus had health scares and I battled anxiety that sometimes made me overprotective. But we faced everything together with patience, with humor, and with love that only grew deeper over time. On our 5th anniversary, Marcus showed me a video, clips from our wedding day. Us laughing, crying, dancing, looking at each other like the world stopped around us. That's us, he said softly. That's what we built from one scary conversation and a choice to be brave together. I leaned against him, watching our younger selves. Best choice I ever made, I whispered. Same, he said, kissing the top of my head. As the sun set over Portland, painting the sky in gold and rose, I realized something. I wasn't ready for what Marcus told me 5 years ago, but I stayed, I learned, I loved, and because of that, I discovered the truth. The best things in life are often the ones we're not ready for, the ones that scare us, change us, and make us whole in ways we never expected. This is our story. This is our truth. Proof that love, real, honest, courageous love, can transform everything. And it all began with 4 simple words. I'm HIV positive. 4 words that could have ended us. Instead became the foundation of the most beautiful life I could have ever imagined.